In this series, Herd Strategies President Denise Herd connects with industry leaders and community members to discuss the challenges they face within their fields. Join us bi-weekly to learn all about how they see us.
Well, hello and happy April. It's National Volunteering Month. And so I just want to welcome you back to another episode of How They See Us. My name is Denise Herd. And if you're tuning in for the first time, thank you so much for joining us. If you are a returning listener, thank you for your continuous support. For those of you that don't know, How They See Us is a series in which we invite friends of Herd Strategies to discuss how they navigate public perceptions and challenges within their fields or within our community. For today's episode, we thought it would be only right to shed light on some incredible volunteer work going on in our community. And so I'm really excited about today's guest because I've known him for a while, but this is like the first time he and I have ever had a sit-down conversation. But we've had conversations, but usually there's like people around and we're like, hey, how you doing? How you doing?
Right.
But this is the first time we've ever just really chopped it up like this. So I'm so excited to have on today's show a gentleman who I have a profound amount of respect for. He is very passionate about social change and community empowerment. I've had an opportunity to stand shoulder to shoulder with him for many years, and I've also had a chance to stand in the background and watch him make a difference in our community. And so it's my pleasure to introduce and welcome Mr. Amp Harris.
Hey.
Hey now.
This is going to be your new daytime job, huh? I'm sitting here listening to you. I'm like,
okay, sponsors, please.
Good morning, America.
Thank you so
okay, move
much.
over, Robin Roberts.
Well, thank you. Oh, go on. Oh, stop. No, really, go on. So, thank you so much for joining us. And so I want you to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, because if I talk about you, I'll be really biased. But tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've done and what you do.
I am the youngest of 8.
I did not know that.
Yes. My mother raised me single parent home.
Awesome.
Grew up in the church, so a lot of who I am and where I come from stems from that.
That's awesome.
And so from that, I started my career at a very young age of like 13. I was DJing in clubs at the age of 16, and at 16, 17, I'm DJing in 21 and over clubs.
How'd you even get in?
A lot of times when you are talent,
they just kind of let
you go in and you do your job, and then you get out.
And then, right, okay,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so that prompted me into the promotion business. I started my own company in 1993, and people like to ask me, well, what do you do? I have no idea. I just make up a title. Denise says I go along.
I get it. Whatever room you're in. No, but I love the whole entrepreneurial spirit. When we can have a conversation about that also.
Right.
Because once you have that fire in your belly, you just have it. Like, I remember in undergraduate, I had a balloon company where I sold balloons on Valentine's Day, and I would deliver them on campus. So that's awesome how you were able to have that fire and tap into that and carry that throughout your entire life.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm God-led, I'm spirit-led.
Gotcha.
In anything that I do, I'm not one of those who write out like a 5-year journal or 5-year plan. I typically don't even write out from event to event what I'm going to do. It's literally, I wake up, or it's spirit. I get something in my head and say, this is what you're going to do.
And then you just...
And then God gives me...
order your steps.
Yes, literally. And so when I'm with corporate people, I drive them crazy.
Because you're not... Because I like process.
Yes, I would drive you crazy. So literally, and I give an analogy of there's Dancing with the Stars.
Right.
Anybody can do that.
Right.
You can be taught to dance.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
Then there's Soul Train.
Right.
So with Soul Train, it's 1, 2, 3, 7, back to 2. You taught the spin, and it all comes together.
Got
and
you.
basically, that's who AMP is.
I got you. Well, I want to talk a little bit about your activism. I want to talk a bit about your philanthropy, and I want to ask you what motivated you. I think we've all gone through cycles in our life or periods in our life where we're louder, we're amplified more than we are in other times in our life. But you've been consistent. You've been banging this drum your entire life about philanthropy, giving back, activism. Can you tell me a little bit about your journey and what kind of inspired? I know everything is God led, but it also takes some courage and faith as well.
Yeah. As it relates to the philanthropic and some people call me a freedom fighter.
I love it. Yeah.
I think it started when I was young watching my mother. I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm around a lot of physically strong people, but mentally the strongest person I've ever met in my life is my mother. I'm able to share this story, and I think this is when I was 13, 14, I kind of don't even remember the time frame, but when I was 13 in that age bracket, I watched my stepfather shoot my brother in the head.
No way.
And that was a moment, like, even me saying it now, I used to could not even say that without just like, wait a minute, time out.
Right.
So fighting through that, I've fought through adversity. And I watched my mother, and she taught me a long time ago, because I was angry, Denise. Like,
I can imagine.
Because we're taught an eye for an eye.
Right.
And I was so angry at my mother because she didn't press charges against my stepfather.
Wow. And that's a lot for you to witness and experience as a child.
Yeah. And that's where the fight in me started.
Gotcha. Okay.
The humility in me. And I live by a creed like today, like people will ask me, well, does this bother you? Does this bother you? Nothing bothers me. Because when you've seen something like that, you can deal with anything.
Right.
And so what I was in that, when that happened, I wanted my mother to press charges because that's the way we're wired.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
She sat me down and I almost had like a nervous breakdown because I'd stopped speaking to my mother. We had a really weird relationship.
Wow.
But my mother's always been my rock. But she stood steadfast in her faith and in her Bible. And when it was time, she said, my God doesn't teach me an eye for an eye.
That's amazing.
And that just rocked my world. So every time I looked at the opportunity to serve, to give back, I think about what she sacrificed.
Right.
Walking in the snow to get to work, catching the bus, raising 8 kids, and never, ever wavering. When it's time to give back to the church, she was always, whether it's cooking, giving her 10%, she always did that. The neighborhood, she was always that person. So at that point, I really, it kind of changed my whole perspective on life.
That makes sense, though. So that had a really, really big impact on you, and it's kind of shaped you and molded you as a young man into your adulthood.
And I didn't realize that's what it was. So a lot of people that I interact with, they're like, you have this joyful disposition. And I'm like, well, if you've been through what I've been through.
Right.
And the Bible teaches you, in order to get something out of something, you have to go through the fire.
Right. You
can't go halfway through, which is what most of us do.
Right, that's very true.
Like if it's 100 yards on a football field, we run 99 and then say, I'm good, because that last yard is the toughest.
Right. I always say you have to go through it to get to it.
That's it.
So I say that every day, whenever, especially when life gets difficult,
Yeah.
that we have to go through it and go to it. And I think that's why giving back and fueling others, feeding others, it feeds you also. It feeds your soul.
Absolutely.
It feeds your soul.
Yes.
So one thing we talked about before, just so you all know, before we started talking here, we'd been talking. And one of the things I said to AMP is that I've watched him over the years, and he's very involved in the community, very involved with a lot of high-profile individuals, a lot of names that our listeners would be familiar with. But the one thing I noticed about your engagement with them is that they, too, have a level of service that they do within the communities in which they are living and breathing and working. And I teased you saying it seemed like it's almost a requirement that if you're going to
Right,
be
you
aligned
did.
with AMP, you better build in some
Right.
give back to
Right.
it. And so can you tell me that journey also? And because I know for us as Herd Strategies, we're very selective about the clients that we work with. We always require clients that are giving back or making a difference in the communities where they are existing. And so I value and appreciate that and make it almost a requirement when we're fielding clients. When you look at clients and looking at those who you align yourself with for the work that you do, how do you ever have to convince them, or is it just seems like it's a given?
No, I mean, it appears to be a given because I think a lot of them tell me, that's my personality. Because again, offline we talked about a lot of people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
So when you are blessed and put in a position of favor, again, I go back to my mother.
Right.
She's always instilled in me, to whom much is given,
Which is required.
there it is. So yes, there is a learning curve that goes along with this professional athlete or this music person that, how much is enough?
Right.
So if you get a $200 million contract, but you become a hermit and you are locked in your house because you can't go anywhere, how much is it enough?
Right.
Is that enough for you to forget where you came from? Is that enough for you to feel like you are more superior than the next person standing next to you? And so I lead by example. And the one thing that most people don't know about any of the people that I deal with, I don't ask them for anything. I don't ask them for their money. I don't even ask them for their time. I just show them. Now, you can come. If I say Denise is this outstanding basketball player and she's made it, okay, that's cool. But let's go show that other little black girl, that other little black boy, that you too can make it come in. And I don't want you to tell me about how you became that great basketball player. I want you to tell me, how did you make it in life to get there? Which means that you had to go through sacrifices.
Right.
You had to put yourself out there, because these kids today, they don't know. They just see the glitz and the glamour of what you do.
They don't see the hard work
They don't
behind
see,
it.
no,
Not
no,
at all.
no.
Not at all.
And they don't. These kids don't have stick-wittedness. So
Yeah. Oh,
what I
yeah.
did was, I would always tell them, guys, listen, just give me your name, because to the average person, that's worth way more than money. So you being there, your physical presence, if it's 5-10 minutes, that's all I ask. So when I get them for 5 or 10 minutes,
Then they're hooked.
they're
in.
locked
They're
in.
locked in for life,
They're
right?
locked in.
Yeah.
And then offline, you and I talked about this. I'm a firm believer that there are two different types of people
Oh, yeah.
in the world.
Yeah.
There are service people,
Yeah.
and there are capitalists.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you can get the service person into a capitalist world where they have the money to impact the service, the people around them,
Right.
that's the best of both worlds.
Right.
It's harder to get somebody who's driven by money to understand the sacrifice of somebody that's less than them, because they forget where they come from.
Right. That's exactly right.
And we
That's
have a
exactly
major
right.
problem with that in our community.
Right.
That we think, oh, I'm my job title.
Defines you, or yes.
So now you have a lot more people. I tell people, I'm driven by my posture, not my position.
But it takes a lot of people a long time to understand that.
That's if they ever get it.
Right. That's you took the words right out of my mouth. No, that's very true. And I'm at a point now where when I look at giving and volunteering and service, that I took treasures out of the equation. People
Yes.
give your time, your talent, your treasure. You know what? We need to get out of the business of writing a check, because a check doesn't solve it. It does not solve it. But me standing shoulder to shoulder with you and young people seeing me, that's what makes a difference. Me sitting down and having a conversation with someone, that makes a difference. I can't write a check to solve a problem.
Right.
That's a Band-Aid.
Images matter.
It really, really does. They really do.
matters.
Really, really do. I want to talk to you. I want to shift gears a little bit, because one of the things that I've noticed about your service and the work that you do is that it's very, very community centric. And it's very, very grassroots focused. I mean, we have our large organizations. I won't name names because I love all of them, so I don't want to say that they don't bring value. But I think sometimes, particularly in Black communities, we have a lot of organizations that need support, that need our service, that are formed in somebody's living room or around someone's kitchen table. Very, very grassroots in focus. And so I would love for you to talk a little bit about those types of organizations that you've seen and even helped, and some of the obstacles that they have to overcome. Because something I said to someone the other day about our grassroots, our smaller nonprofits, even, don't sleep on them, because they have survived. They've survived without resources, and they are thriving, but they still have obstacles. And so would you talk a little bit about those that you've encountered and the things that we may not know and understand the challenges that they're facing?
I think it really comes back down to the individual person, whether if that's the person who's writing the check versus the person who's receiving the check. A lot of times, and you just hit on it, a lot of times people that work in these large corporations, they do their job in service because that's their job.
It's almost required.
That's not who they are.
Right.
So when you're dealing with people like that, I always ask people, tell me if Mr. Johnny Jackson, what has he done in the community after 5 p.m.? Even though he runs this big organization, what has that person done after 5? Because if you can show me what that person has done after 5, then I can tell you who that person really is.
Got you.
So for nonprofits like myself, I'm a grassroots guy. I have a lot of privilege, and I don't take it for granted. And I'm very different than a lot of my peers in the nonprofit sector. A lot of them look at me as like, oh, Amp, you got access to this person, to the mayor. You can just pick him up and call him. The mayor ain't never gave me $1. You can call the governor. The governor ain't never gave me $1. You can call the president of this, the NBA or this or that. I can, but anytime I call those individuals, it's for the community.
Right, not for yourself.
It's not for me.
Not for yourself.
So
right.
I know there are levels to grassroots nonprofits. They don't get the respect now that they used to.
Why is that?
Again, it's two different types of people. I think the capitalists have become more aggressive. Capitalists are running nonprofits, and they run it like a Fortune 500 company, and you can't. So now big corporations, they don't care about the little nonprofit organization because the nonprofit doesn't have a microphone as big as the big. And they're chosen. These corporations, I deal with it, and I'm quick to tell them, you deal with the same 15 people. I don't care what the situation is. I tell them, the All-Star Weekend, y'all deal with the same 15 people. If there's a fire in the neighborhood, y'all call the same 15 people. If they need to go, if somebody needs, is there a car wash on the corner? The same 15 people are coming.
Right.
So at some point, until you get out of your comfort zone, because a lot of them, Denise, are comfortable. We have to make them comfortable being uncomfortable.
That's very true.
And until that happens,
absolutely,
they're going to look past that little grassroots 501c3 nonprofit organization because they don't know them, and that person may not come in with a suit on.
Right.
Grassroots people don't wear suits.
Right.
They dress like AMP.
Right.
But we're the ones on the front line doing the grunt work. We're doing the heavy lifting. So they don't get the same respect.
Yeah.
And until we start looking at people, I tell people all the time, I'm not going to judge you by what you say. I'm going to judge you by what you do or don't do. And that's where small nonprofits get the bad end of it.
I agree with that. I also say that organizations now have got to quit trying to do things according to their rules and their guidelines, because you are trying to fit a square peg in a round
It doesn't work.
hole. You are the one that has to change. You can't force this organization, this nonprofit, to change to fit your mold, because you actually need them more than they need you.
Because we're not monolithic.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
so you can't put
Exactly.
everybody in the same box
No.
and make everybody go. Like with me, with my nonprofit, like if I'm doing something in the community, I never ask the family to fill out
A
5.
form.
How you gonna give me? You want me? You want to service me, but I gotta give you my child's social security number
Right.
and last four.
Right.
No,
Right.
absolutely. So that's another part of it.
Right.
Until we get past that, either you want to be in service and help. Again, you can't be both.
Right.
You can't be a capitalist and because the capitalist is no. I'm going to make sure that you're required to do
Right.
this,
You
this,
following
this.
this guideline, this
What?
bill, this, yes, it's very
It's
black
already
and white.
bad
Right.
that I
Right.
got to stand here.
And ask you for help.
Because I
hear you.
came
I
off
hear
of government
you.
cheese.
But that was good cheese though. Like
It
don't,
was.
Don't,
It was
don't
just
dog the
hard.
government
You
cheese.
just-
that made
just
good
listen,
macaroni. Now the peanut butter was suspect,
you
but the
better
cheese
had
was
to do your
fire.
curls to get your-
But
'cause
they, and
you
they
gonna have
made
to-
good grilled cheese sandwiches.
They
And
did.
people that
Took you about 13 minutes for
it
it
was
to
hard
melt.
cut. Yeah, it was hard. And then the heat had to be on hill to make it melt, but it was good cheese. It was good cheese. So, but I get it. I get it. So it took me back to a time. So, but let me ask you something, because the one thing I do not like excuses. I have many Deniseisms that I use every day, and one of them is either you're going to talk about it or be about it. Otherwise, you're just a bobblehead because you're just going from side to side. And so you hear people saying all the time, I want to help, I want to get involved, I want to serve, blah, blah, blah. But they're like, but I just don't know where. And I think that is so lame, in all honesty. And so, but there are people that don't know where and how. And so can you offer can you offer some pearls of wisdom, or just a little bit of advice on how to get started,
To serve or
to volunteer? I think that we'd be remiss if we didn't touch on that a little bit, even though I think that you could just pick any organization and make a phone call. But
I'm one to, like I tell people all the time, I'm guided by my spirit. And with me, I'm looked at differently from a really weird lens, perspective-wise. Because again, people think because of the assets that I have in a relationship.
that it's just automatic, and it's not.
They
right,
don't have
right.
a clue.
No, thank you for saying that, because it's not automatic. There is work that goes into volunteer and service. You don't just snap your fingers and make a difference. And so I do think it's important that you do stress that it's not an overnight sensation.
And it's
kind of-
not easy.
Not at all. Because it takes a lot of trust.
Well, it takes a lot of trust and a discipline, and when people, some people volunteer because if I say, for example, Amp Harris and Mike Epps, I want to volunteer because they want to go see Mike Epps,
Right.
And I'm very clear of that,
Right, right.
That entertainment thing, I use it to my benefit. Because I call all of my celebrity friends, I call them magnets.
That's because people
That's
come to
exactly
see
what
them.
they are.
People come to see
That's
them.
my magnet,
Yep.
and I'm very clear.
Yep.
So a lot of times you'll hear me doing events, and it'll say Amp Harris and this person, Amp Harris and that person. I know what I'm gaining
Because
from
that person brings the people.
that
brings the
person.
people.
And so when it comes to volunteering, I always tell people, like, it's easy now because social media. There are no excuses.
I agree.
Like I did an event on social media where I wanted to, and it just spurred a moment. I wanted to adopt 10 inner city kids from single parent homes because that's where I come from. From the inner city, that's where I come from. But then there was a little caveat that I needed this kid to have a 3.2 GPA or better. Because I believe you have to be willing to put in
some skin in the game, right?
Yes.
Skin in the game.
Because if I just give you something for nothing,
right?
That's what. So volunteering, people were calling me, and I laid it out. I did a video and everything. It's on my social media, and the people were like, "Well, where do I go?" I'm like, "Did you not hear and see the video?" So if you really are intentional, you're going to do whatever it takes. Even if you just show up to said event that day.
Right.
Hey, I'm here to volunteer.
Right.
No one is going to turn you down to volunteer.
Not at all. No volunteer. No organizations. Oh no, we have enough.
Right.
We don't need more help. No, like that's not gonna happen.
No, so
not at all.
I
You're
tell
right.
people all the time, like at the end of the day, if you want to volunteer, social media makes it very easy because wherever you hear that information from, that person's contact is on social media. It's really, is that really what you want to do? Is it, is it say, you know, it's sexy, Denise, to say, I'm volunteering for the NBA All-Star Weekend.
Well, yeah, everybody because you get the gear,
and then
I'm
you
at
get
the game.
they give you this elaborate, pretty little logo. You get to post on your social media.
Right.
I'm so thankful that.
Right.
But if I say to you, hey, I need you next week to volunteer on 30th and Post Road to pick up cans. Man, my baby mama, girlfriend, sister, cousin. Yeah, man, see what had happened, Amp, was.
So the magnet's not there.
Bingo.
The magnet's not there.
So that's the downside to the type of events. Me in particular that I do, because they're typically kind of high profile in Indianapolis.
Right.
Because the media and I have the relationship. But I encourage people, don't worry about how large it is of what it is that you want to provide. Don't be Amp.
Right.
You know, for my event, like for Christmas.
Oh yes, we were going to talk about that. But the 5 at the track, you gave out. Like,
but I adopt 1,000 kids. But you take one.
Right.
You did your service.
Right. And you pointed out something. You said something that I think is really important, and you've been saying it's been the common theme in this whole conversation. You know, like the kids say, do you. Do you. That's where volunteerism is concerned, is really focused around what drives you? Where is your passion? You know, and so I think that to those individuals that are listening or sharing this or, you know, are engaging with individuals trying to figure out where should I go, what should I do, start at home. You know, where are your values? What motivates you? What's your passion? And so that's where you start. That's where you're able to find that lane to donate your time and your talent, because not only are you feeding someone, you're also being fed, because there's a level of reciprocity that goes into volunteering, because no one wants to volunteer with something that you don't enjoy, because then you won't go back.
You won't go back.
And volunteering should be in perpetuity. It should be ongoing. It should be continuous. And so if you know that, you know, I know my dad for a long time, he read to kids because my dad loved to read.
Right.
And so, of course, my sister and I were like, Dad, we don't need you to read to us now. We're good. We can read on our own. Like, I'm not going to be a girl, you know. But so he would go out and read, and that gave him such joy to read and see the reaction from the kids that he was reading to, that he was a longtime volunteer, you know, doing that. So I just think that's so, so important. We just have a couple of minutes left, and I know that we could have this conversation forever and ever and ever. And so, but the team is telling me like, hey, you need to start, you know, winding this down. But I do have a question, because, you know, we talk about volunteering, but it's really about the future.
Yeah.
You know, it's really about thinking about generations to come. It's thinking about our community in years to come. And so I want to ask you, what are your hopes with respect to volunteerism and even activism for the future? Where do you hope to see this move to or evolve to?
I like to go back to Martin Luther King era. And that was volunteering.
It really was.
That was with a purpose. You know, it's one thing for us to write, like you said, write checks, but I'm big on intention. And so whenever I do something, and you said it offline, there's always something to go along with it. You know, I can dress 10 young men for the prom, but I need to see that you are doing your part. That GPA, that if I adopt 1,000 kids, I need you as a parent, grandparent to come and get the toys.
Yes.
You can't bring it. So,
right. Got you.
And a lot of it, again, I believe for us in our community, images matter. And me being a black man, that I don't stand 7 feet tall. I don't dunk a basketball. I don't run a football. I don't tell jokes. I am the common person that through hard work and perseverance, I'm in a position where you can see AMP and that child can say, ooh, I can do that. Mommy, look at him. He ain't taller than me. But he did all of this. Volunteers who come around me and see that I'm committed from 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. to make sure that if we tell these people it's going to be blue, it's blue. So now they pick up that. Kids pick up the fact that there is hope, that they can see somebody that looks like me.
Them.
Yes.
Yeah.
That the opportunities that I get to sit with the president of this organization and use that to pay it forward for the next generation. So I think it all encompassing the individual themselves and how they're wired. But if we don't know, we don't know good, bad, or indifferent.
Right.
We just out here I'm a volunteer, and I know a bunch of people, Denise, that would just, oh, this is going on, I'm volunteering. They don't, there's nothing there.
I there is nothing worse than a serial volunteer.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, I need you to have a mission and a purpose. Like, okay, just to put it on your resume that you did this and you did that and you did
But now they don't even put it on their resume. They just want to put it on their phone. Y'all see me?
Oh, the pictures, the selfies.
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh, like, okay, like really? Is that what we doing? Like, you know, there's starving
Absolutely.
kids over there, right? Like, what's going on here?
That's their intention.
Yeah. Oh, I totally get it. You know, and I often have to tell my students, because, you know, I'm an adjunct professor at IUPUI, and so I teach intro to PR. So I look at a lot of my students' resumes, and I'll see like all this volunteer service. And my thing to them is, okay, first of all, you volunteered everywhere.
Right.
Congratulations.
Right.
But when did you go to class?
Right.
Because you have so much volunteerism, you couldn't have done anything well.
Right.
You couldn't
You were
have
just
made
there
it
for 5 minutes.
Right. You could not have made an impression because there's too much. What oh, okay, that's a conversation for another day too, but we do need to wind things down. And so I do want to give you an opportunity, if there's anything we haven't covered or anything else you'd like to share before we do sign off, I'm going to give you a chance to do so, if you'd like.
Yeah, mine is simple. Like, when it comes to volunteering, follow your heart. Don't do something just to be doing it, because the purpose is to help someone.
Right.
And those that need help, they don't need to see you everywhere they are.
True.
So,
True.
you know, I believe that in our community, images matter. I'm a firm believer in that. And to whom much is given, much is required. If you have it, yeah, you can write a check, but write a check to somebody that you know is really doing the work.
Right.
You know, you'll very seldom ever see AMP Harris Foundation soliciting funds. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you're going to know if I'm doing something that it's with intention. The people that are around me are typically the same people that are working with me. And our purpose is, my foundation doesn't specifically focus on one thing. My focus is on, if there is a need, it hits my spirit or I see it. I write checks, Denise, for people who have lost furniture in fires. You know, I write checks to families, teachers, to help buy
School supplies.
Yeah, so
right. But there's a need. It's all
yes.
need based.
Yes.
It's need. What is the need? And I think that's what you see yourself fulfilling. Like, you have been able to take what your needs were as a child growing up in the world that you lived in, and as an adult, you've been able to not lose sight of those needs and understand that those needs still exist and be the solution for addressing those needs. And so it's almost like you came full circle.
And I'm still not, the circle ain't completed because there's a lot of hope that still is
that
out
makes
there.
sense.
You know
That
what I
makes
mean?
sense.
And so one day I feel like I'm close to 10, I'm 9, then I'm like back to 2.
Good back.
Then I got to start all over.
Like,
So,
oh,
you know,
man.
so at the end of the day, I wish everything that I do is just to give people hope. You know,
love
if
that.
it's just for that 5 minutes with that child opening up that gift, there's hope.
I love that.
And that's the purpose of AMP Harris Foundation, is to provide hope.
I love that. And so I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. Get the
I
wordplay.
did.
So I really, really, really appreciate you joining me today. This was a great conversation. It truly was. And it was exactly what I had hoped that it would be.
Hey.
I really did. And it was intentional and it was purposeful. And I'm so, so appreciative of that. And so thank you again for joining us, and thank you for everyone that tuned in to this episode of How They See Us. Don't forget to subscribe to our How They See Us podcast series. We're available wherever you get your podcasts. We're available on all platforms, and thanks a lot to the Herd Strategies team for producing this episode today. And until the next time we're together, thank you and love one another.